this and that and what the fuck else, episode 78, picking up. In this episode I'm going to talk about Latvia, NATO, quite a lot of things about NATO, and then Romania, and what the fuck that must make you question the things that you see. Don't just look at things and see it and don't really see. Look and see. That's important. I'm curious. I would like some feedback on the format of these things, the content that I'm using, and so, as I've said previously, I'm trying to bring the things that you will not see on the front pages and mainstream media. So I'm bringing to you the things that is not in the public view. But you must tell me if you don't like it. Otherwise, I'm sitting here and I'm wasting my time and I'm wasting your time. But let's go. I'm going to start off with this. It's just a little bit of history, but I think it's still relevant. It's from Ian Smith, the former Rhodesian leader. If blacks are to rule themselves, people in towns will walk on sewage until they believe it's normal. All the gains from colonization will vanish. Infrastructure will collapse. Roads will be impassable. Trains will kill people until they are abandoned as a usable safe mode of transport. Hospitals will be closed. Farms will be grabbed and nothing to feed the nation. And that was in 1975. And then the question is asked, was this a prophecy or reality? Think about it and look around. And then I'm going to get to Latvia. But I want to give a little bit of background. Those three Baltic countries sitting up there on the Baltic Sea, I don't know what their problem is. Economically, they don't actually deserve to be countries on their own. They cannot stand on their own. Those countries exist because of financial support from the EU. And they were specifically co-opted by the EU so that NATO could have a foothold on the Russian border. That was the reason. That's why they are part of NATO, not because they are bringing anything to the EU. They are a tool, the same way that Ukraine is now being used, and will be the fate of these three countries. I'm quite sure they're going to be thrown into the meat grinder at some stage. And with Poland, I don't know what the hell is going on there in Poland. That Polish government is absolutely fanatical about picking a fight with Russia. And the Poles are under the impression that NATO will storm in and support them. The reality is, NATO does not want to fight with Russia one-on-one. If they wanted to, they could have been in by April this year. They don't want to fight with it. They have got a proxy fighting Russia. And that proxy is getting a beating. What is going on there in the Ukraine is absolutely horrific. The people that are being killed there are killed for somebody else's agenda. And I have read a document which says that the Poles, they want to resurrect some federation with the Baltics. I don't know how that's going to play out, but the fact of the matter is, financially, those three Baltic countries doesn't deserve to be countries. They have deindustrialized themselves to a large extent, and now with the Russian sanctions and so, they've killed basically anything that's worthwhile in their countries. I don't know how these people are going to survive the winter. But then there's this hatred towards Russia from the leadership in those Baltic countries. And the tragedy is that many of their own citizens are actually Russians. Now look at this. Residents of Latvia carry flowers and light candles at the site of the destroyed monument to the defenders of Lipaya. Tonight it was like this at the site of the demolished monument. People came despite the cold weather and rain. Look at that image. That is one of the sites where the Latvian government has torn down monument that was erected memory of the Russian soldiers that died freeing the Latvians from the Nazis. It is a shame that these things are. It is actually barbaric. Here's another monument. Residents of Daugavpils says goodbye to the monument to Soviet soldiers. The Latvian authorities sentenced the monument to demolition. The city authorities, led by the mayor, resisted the decision of the government of the country to the last, but information came from Riga that on Sunday both Daugavpils monuments to the Red Army soldiers will be fenced and destroyed, according to this journalist. Look at that. How stupid is that? It is like that German auction house that are auctioning off Russian art and then they burn it. What the fuck has gone wrong in the minds of the Europeans? I always perceived them as highly civilized people, but these actions of theirs, this is barbaric. Yeah, let's step off this. This is dark for me. I'm in a dark place tonight. And then there's this, and I mean, this is absolutely shocking. It's a meme, but read that. I went to a petting zoo yesterday, says Joe Biden, and then Obama. That was an elementary school, Joe. What the fuck happened in America? What the actual fuck happened? They have got this idiot as their president. And this thing is supposed to be the leader of the Western world. For fuck's sakes, he's not. For me, I'm in the Western world. He's not a leader to me. He's a disgrace. And this meme you must look at and then you have to laugh. And this is about this gender confusion that's going on. The guy says to that girl, remember to connect the male to the female, and they're busy assembling a switchboard. And then she reckons, why assign gender roles to electrical connections? Let the circuits decide their own identities. And then you see in the bottom picture how that tower goes up in flames. That's the result of her choices. And then this meme, you can just look at it. I actually picked it up because I thought it was, that is a good piece of art in my mind. Forget the message and so forth. I think that was done very well. And then we get to this. And this is shocking. Oops, one of the B61-12 was inadvertently given to Ukraine, just a regular mishap. Fuck's sakes, a mishap. Senior American officials told reporters that the US military inadvertently delivered a low-yield nuclear device to the Ukrainian regime during implementation of the Land-Lease Act. The military is launching an extensive investigation to identify how this event happened and what can be done to prevent future incidents. The Ukrainian government has not commented on the developments but told reporters that any weaponry provided to Ukraine will not be given back. Experts raised doubts about whether this could contribute to Ukraine war effort. Can you imagine that? They sent this guy a nuke by mistake. Yes. And then this is something that should disturb the whole of Europe. NATO country top general weighs in on further aid to Ukraine. Lithuania should not arm Ukraine with heavy weaponry at the expense of its own defense capabilities, according to the Baltic States top commander. I need to have tools. We can't perform the task without capacities, but these capacities that we have now reached a point where we can't offload anymore. And He has the guts to say it to the press. The reality is that is the position of every European country, Britain and the US included. Zelensky has effectively disarmed them. And yeah, I listened to a guy talking earlier tonight. According to a poll that was done worldwide, 48% of the people said that America is the biggest threat to global peace. And then you must look at this image from 1989 to 2017. 10 wars, 6 million people killed. Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Panama, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, the Gulf, Yugoslavia, Yemen. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? My question is, look at all those countries. Look at all those countries. What the fuck does the Americans gain by doing what they are doing there? Well, okay, it's a stupid question apart from the fact that they are stealing those countries blind. Look at how they destroyed them. Destruction. Already poor countries. And then the fucking Americans come in and they bomb everything to pieces. Infrastructure, housing, commercial buildings, industrial buildings, everything. They bomb everything to pieces. They steal whatever they can and they fuck off back to America and leave the people with the rubble. These Americans are looking for big shit. And then we get to this Stoltenberg. And listen to this stupid remark. NATO will not let Russia win the war in Ukraine. We cannot let Putin win. It would be a catastrophe, a tragedy for the Ukrainians, but it would also make us, NATO members, more vulnerable. But apparently NATO is not a party to the conflict. For fuck's sakes, what stupid thing to say. NATO will not let Russia win. Russia is winning, despite NATO. NATO just don't have the balls to go in there and declare that they are part of the conflict. They've already lost. NATO have already lost. And then there's this from Garland Nixon. I listened to him again earlier tonight. Yeah, he is really giving the United States management team hell, and he's all over the Europeans. Wake up, Europe. Your leaders are all traitors working for the gangsters in DC. Is NATO making you safer? No. It's risking your life with nuclear threats and selling your lifestyle to the crooked regime in DC. If you have any spine, you must stand up against them. Traitors. And I agree with what he says. I am absolutely stunned that the Europeans have allowed that Ursula von der Crazy and her cabal in Brussels, the Europeans have allowed them to destroy Europe. And then the Washington Post comes out with this shit story. Russia's security service works to subvert Moldova's pro-Western government. A trove of sensitive materials obtained by the Ukrainian intelligence and reviewed by the Washington Post illustrates how Moscow continues to try to manipulate countries in Eastern Europe. What a load of shit. This is now exactly what the Americans usually do. But when you hear Ukrainian intelligence information, you must ask questions. And then this is about that attack on Sevastopol harbor. The black drone down. US reconnaissance drone, Global Hawk, taking off from Sicily, circles neutral waters in the Black Sea near Crimea, flying over deadly waters as meanwhile a Ukrainian underwater drone is shot down by the Russian forces. What happened there in Sevastopol is going to cost Ukraine and Europe a lot. And then we get to Putin. This is something that he said. Putin, the game of the West is bloody, dangerous and dirty. They killed Soleimani. an Iranian general. They killed and said, yes, we killed him. What is this? Where do we live? The US has nothing to offer to the world but its dominance. And that is true. And I've didn't pay much attention to this incident of this general killing, but lately I've read some articles, and he was in Iraq on his way to a peace negotiation which the Americans set up, and they killed him there. This is not right. And you want to know why the bulk of the world hates the Americans? And then there's another statement from Putin. Losing supremacy, the West is turning into a minority on the world stage. If Western elites think they can inject trends like gay parades and dozens of genders into their societies, they can do what they want, but they have no right to demand others to do the same. And he is talking the truth, because this is what the West is currently doing. They want to transplant their sick morality onto the rest of the world. And then there's this statement from that Black in the Empire Twitter guy that I follow. Putin is not an evil villain from a movie or a comic book. He's just the leader of a country that the rulers of the United States government hates. And think about what the man is saying. And then we get to this racism shit. This person posts this on Twitter. White beauty standards are putting black women in danger. A new study suggests white beauty standards aren't merely an inconvenience for black people, they're potentially harmful as well. What a load of cock. And then the poster of this, the tweeter, I am so sick of this twaddle and poppycock. Is there anything that is not racist? Is breathing oxygen okay? And then we get more of that Russian shit in Europe. And this happened in Geneva. Vandals have smeared paint on the Russian Orthodox Church of the Virgin Mary in Geneva. The Russian embassy in Bern sent a note of protest to the Swiss Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Can you believe it? Look at that. Those Europeans are more and more acting like these barbarians that we have in our streets here. And then we get to Romania. Romanian Defense Minister resigns after Ukraine comments. Vasily Dinku faced pressure after suggesting Kiev may have to make concessions to reach a peace deal with Russia. Romania's Minister of Defense handed in his resignation on Monday after incurring a backlash for publicly suggesting that Ukraine may have to give up some territory in order to end the ongoing military conflict with Russia. Can you believe it? This guy has to resign because he's talking about peace. The world has gone fucking crazy. And then we get to that what the fuck, and this is one that I have handled in the previous thing, but here is more pictures. Now you look at those images and tell me all of them are Joe Biden. My question is, which one is the real Joe Biden? That is what we have to. But these things are all over social media, but I don't see any journalist pursuing this fucker. Something is cooking. And on that note, please cook me a like there and a subscribe and share the thing. Thank you for your support.